Okay, guys, you're live.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Our pleasure to be back at Ham Radio University. Of course, we were all looking forward to doing it brick and mortar, but you know, here we are online, the second best thing to being person to person. Today, we're going to talk about how to learn and have fun with Morse code. Very important to have fun while learning. My name's Howard, WB2UZE, and my partner here is
Jim, W6JIM.
Okay, Jim, let's get started.
Did it get started?
Not yet.
Let's see.
Well, you missed the first slide, I think. Okay, there we go.
Here we go.
All right.
A little technical difficulty.
All right, here we go. So what's the attraction of CW in today's high-tech world? Why would anybody learn a vintage form of communication? Well, you know, when people join our club, we ask this question and we find out the following. Many people are interested today in SOTA and POTA. Summits on the air, parks on the air. Sure, you can do it with sideband, but if you're going to go up a mountain, you'd certainly want to carry the lightest equipment you can, and CW is a lighter rig, and it works a lot better with compromised and smaller antennas. You know, we had a guy that did a presentation to the club who does SOTA all the time, and he goes up to the mountain with goats, pack animals. Most of us don't have that ability, so certainly it would be an advantage to go up with a smaller CW rig. You know, why would you use CW when you have very high-tech, wonderful modes like FT8 that can, you know, hear very weak signals and get you all around the world? Well, when you're using FT8, the computer is doing the work. The computer is the brain. When you're using CW, your own mind is controlling and is the brain. We have studies in our file that say CW is really good for creating white matter pathways in the brain, and it's very good for older people to exercise their mind, and CW is very valuable for that. There's also, we find people are perhaps tired of having everything instantaneous on their cell phones and their computers, excuse me, and CW is, you know, a very vintage and comfortable way of getting on the air. And it's quite the opposite of today's very fast-paced world. So those are some of the main reasons that we find people are interested in CW. What's next, Jim?
Learning CW. Well, in our program, we use the Koch method and the Farnsworth method. The Koch method dictates the order of the characters that we present, and the Farnsworth method shows us how we present the characters in a way that they're coming at you a little bit quick at about 20 words per minute, but we give 5 words per minute spacing as we're teaching, so it's plenty of time to identify the character. And the reason we introduce the character a little bit quicker like this is because we want you to learn it as a sound and not by counting the different parts of the character, the dis and the das. All this is with focused on getting the students making QSOs and on the air as soon as possible. And we find that if they put in the time and do, you know, at least 15 minutes a day, we get them on the air fairly quickly. Howard?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. You know, the main thing for all of this, many methods that you could use to learn CW, but the most important thing is to get on the air. Learning CW is like learning a language. Like it's what we call an oral language. It's just like learning Spanish or French. And if you don't practice it and you don't use it, it's really not going to be relevant, and it's going to be a lot harder. And, you know, there's a lot of other things that you could do rather than sit up in your shack and learn CW. Netflix has a lot of interesting programming now, and that could be a major draw if you're not having fun and also utilizing what you learn. Okay, Jim. Well, here's an interesting question. what do you use when you're a beginner, a straight key or a keyer? Now, if you put this question up on qrz.com or eham, you'd get 5,000 questions. What is our feeling on this? We recommend a straight key. And why? When you're using a straight key, you have to use your mind that will tell your hands what to do. It'll travel all the way down your arm, and you have to control the dits and the das. And we feel that you're making a better connection to the CW mentally and physically. We feel that that will increase the learning curve. Now, when you get up to about 18 and 20 words a minute, that's when you got to put your pencil down. You can't use this anymore. It's too fast. And then you have to increase your speed. Well, then it's time when you have command of the 40 characters to get into a use of a keyer, a mechanical device. Now, are we cast in stone on this? The answer is no. If you'd like to use a keyer, the decision is yours. How do we feel about a bug? A bug is a wonderful instrument to use. It has its own personality, and your own fist will have its own way of sounding too. We call that a swing. That's a little bit too complicated to use in the beginning. We recommend to put that off to later. But like I said, the final decision is up to you. We have recommended the use of keyers when people will have, let's say, carpal tunnel problems or maybe some physical injuries to their hand. Okay, Jim.
Fear of CW. This is my slide because fear of CW is what brought me to the Long Island CW Club. Now, we found that this is not an isolated case that I had. We have a lot of people that come to the club because, like me, they have a grasp of the characters, or maybe they just learn the characters within the club, but once they learn it, they're really afraid to use it and get on the air. Well, we understand it and we combat it. And one of the things that we do is, first of all, figure out why are people afraid to get on the air? And really it comes down to people don't want to make mistakes. I feel like that we have a lot of perfectionists that are drawn to CW within the ham radio community. And of course, nobody wants to make mistakes. But one of the things we do within our classes is we create a really friendly atmosphere. We have a lot of fun. We get to the point to where we're not afraid to make mistakes in front of each other, and we work through them. And then, of course, the second part of that is we combat it with education. We have classes that, of course, teach you the code, but then we also have classes that teach you how to use that code in a QSO. So once you get into that class and start learning what to spend and when, and what to expect the other station to send you and when, you pretty much already know what's coming back and forth, and that really goes really far towards combating the fear of getting on the air. Howard?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. I agree with you. You know, when we started this club 3 years ago, I had no idea that people were afraid of CW or afraid of getting on the air. As a matter of fact, I heard this recently that people are afraid of getting on sideband for the first time by making a mistake and having somebody verbally tell them something they might not want to hear. So, you know, when I got started, you know, back in 1965 and got my novice, we had a novice at 5 words a minute, and we had to get to 13 words a minute to take our general within a year, or we would lose our privileges and have to start again. So there was no time to be fearful. We had to just jump right in and get going. But today it's different. And, you know, people, you know, for whatever reason are just worried about this, and we get it. We get it, and we deal with this right away. And we've structured the whole club around this to have a very welcoming and friendly, non-critical atmosphere to fight this. Okay, Jim.
Getting on the air and QSO protocol. And why is it so important getting on the air? Well, just kind of like I spoke earlier, people are afraid to get on the air. And it's one of those things that where once you do it, you realize that it's really not that scary, and the whole world's not going to end if you mess up one character. And so once we get you on the air and we get through that fear, that opens up a whole new world of possibilities of chances for you to get out there and practice real QSOs with real people. So that's why we focus on getting you on the air quickly. But then we also, before we get you on there, of course, we got to tell you and teach you how to use this new language that you've learned, and that's our QSO protocol. We have classes that break down the QSO into what we call different protocols, and we call each protocol like an exchange. Like you do your first exchange, that's protocol 1. the other station will come back and give you the same thing. And then the second time you exchange with them, you give them some different information. We teach all that. And when it's done correctly, and the reason I have this slide up here with the note, kind of like some music back there, is because when a CW QSO is done correctly, it's like beautiful music. It's like a perfect dance. If you ever see, I don't know, ballroom dancing or some kind of dancing where each partner has to know exactly what their step is in conjunction with the other partner. It's an intricate and beautiful thing. Just like you hear really good music that's just really tight and just everything's hitting just right. Morse code sounds the same way whenever it's done right in a QSO. So we teach towards that, and that does a lot to get us through the fear and get people on the air. Howard?
Well, that's right, Jim. The end game, as we always say, is getting on the air. That's the end game. We have a number of classes. We call one demystifying the QSO to get people over that fear that we were just talking about. And I, every Wednesday, have a live QSO class where we all get on the same frequency and we're on the same band. And let's say we hear a station in Germany. I will do the decoding on this to take the pressure off the students that are in the class, and then they can concentrate on this protocol and they're sending, and they make their first contacts. And when they get done, we all cheer and they get a certificate. That's how we do it. Okay, Jim, what's next? Head copy. Okay, this is mine. I have to thank Jim for getting this, finding this picture of a woman, getting the cerebral messages to her head. Head copy, how do you do it, right? Well, head copy starts at 18 to 20 words a minute, like I said before. Why? Because it's just too fast to be writing and you're going to use a lot of paper up. So you can't find anything on the internet written about how to teach head copy. There's nothing there. There's no books. So what I've done, I teach this class Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock, is I relate my own personal experience, how I did it. Now, I learned head copy when I was 15 years old. I had a much younger mind. We see studies that talk about CW and the white matter pathways, also plasticity of the mind, how it creates this type of good processes in the brain. I developed these when I was younger. Now, most of the people that we teach now are 40 years plus. They might not have that same type of plasticity. So there are 5 ways that I teach how to receive Morse code in your head. We don't have the time to talk about it here. It's a very cerebral process. And basically, you have to take the CW from your ear and get away from instant character and word recognition. That's what I call is outside of your head. And you have to put it inside here on a moving ticker tape. Unfortunately, with this webinar platform, this ticker tape doesn't move. But if you've seen it in Times Square, or you see a ticker tape like on the bottom of a news feed like on CNN, you have to put the decoding that you're doing and it's got to move. If it can't be done that way, you have to put it on a blackboard or some sort of repository right here in your head, and we teach how to do it.
Increasing speed. Well, in a nutshell, the answer to the question, is it necessary to increase speed? The answer is no. You get to go as fast or as slow as you want. I've had fantastic QSOs with people at 8 or 10 words a minute. I've had great QSOs at 15 words a minute and up at 20 words a minute. It just all depends on how you feel and how far you want to push yourself. I feel that the speed will come to you naturally as you become more comfortable with CW, and as you get more familiar with it, and the instant recognition starts to come to you a little bit quicker and quicker. Speed will naturally come on. Of course, there are instances where you hit plateaus, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the short answer to this question is you can be as fast or as slow as you want. You're still communicating. Some people talk fast. I talk a little fast sometimes, and others talk slow. The message is the same. Howard?
That's absolutely right, Jim. And look, what is speed? Speed, okay? You can do perfectly well and have a lot of fun on CW, sending it 15 words a minute. As a matter of fact, I've been on the air every Sunday night in the K1USN slow speed sprint at 12 words a minute, and I'm enjoying it. It's bringing me back to my novice days. And, so you can have a lot of fun. So Do you have to do 50 words a minute? Sure. If you want to learn that, you can. If you're going to send a CQ at 50 words a minute, you're going to be very lonely on the bands because no one's going to answer you. Can you hear it? Yeah, once in a while on 40 meters in the evening on 7018, you'll hear 3 guys sending at 50 words a minute. One of them is in the club, but it's not a very common thing. Now, what speed do I send at? I send at 24 words a minute. Well, you would say, why does he say 24 words a minute? You know, every word per minute above 20 sounds different. Why do I like 24? Is because at that speed, I'm still using my subconscious mind. I'm not like gritting my teeth and concentrating on what's coming out of the receiver at 35, 40, and 50 words a minute. I can still sit there and it could be in the background. I can hear it. I can send an email. I can take a phone call. I can text. I can balance my checkbook. I still can have fun and have it at a comfortable speed. Now, do you have to send faster sometimes than copy? Sure. A pileup will run somewhere between 25 and 40 words a minute contests, but basically they're just sending your call sign in an RST or an exchange. It's not a requirement. If you want to get there, we got the classes that take you there, but don't worry about speed. It's not necessary to do if you don't want it. Okay, the next part of the presentation is going to be the challenges faced during your CW journey. Overstudy, errors, plateauing, sending, and this wonderful term that I learned from Jim from his Air Force days, expectation management. So let's go, Jim.
Overstudy. I'll take this one, Howard. And this is just basically saying that we want you to practice 15, 20 minutes a day, maybe do that a couple times a day, but you can't overdo it. And we don't want you to get burnt out. There's so many websites and there's so many applications that you can get. You could literally spend the rest of your life becoming experts at these apps and these websites. We don't want you to become a professional student. We don't want you to lose sight of the fact that the reason that we've started on this venture of learning CW is to get on the air and use it to communicate with others on HF or wherever you may use it. So we want to make sure that that you don't just focus on those practice programs. We don't. I have people asking me sometimes, am I ready to get on the air? I'm at 78% on my app, and the way I think is, hey, if you feel generally comfortable with the app, I don't care if you're at 60 or 70%. You're ready to get on the air once you get a grasp of those characters. Howard?
You know, Jim, this professional student today, we're surrounded by apps and programs on your computer. You know, when people come into the club, we ask them what apps they use. I have made a compendium where I must have 100 apps and websites that people are using, and we rank them, okay? Now, people feel that they have to become, completely conversant at 40 words a minute, on the 40 characters, excuse me, using their apps and computers before they get on the air. That's not true. Because look, we have studies in our club file. There were a lot of studies done when Morse code was very, very important, in the 1940s during World War II and the 1950s. And they were just struggling. How do they crank people out? Because they needed thousands of operators for the war effort. Now, some people study 6 months, a year, 2 years before they got on the air. I mean, the war would have been over already. Would have been over. And they would have still been in school. So we say, study 3 or 4 months, whatever you have, take it, get on the air. And I'll tell you something that some people would say is really heresy.
Don't say it.
If you put this, Jim, on one of those forums, again, what's the best way to study? Everybody talks about Cochin forums. I would take a guy and pat him on the back that studied CW just reading off a chart for a month, and then get on the air right away and practice for the next few months right there. So getting
it's
on the
important
air,
to note that we don't recommend that, though.
Yeah, we don't recommend. But look, getting on the air is very important, and that's really the glue that binds everything and keeps you going on your CW journey.
Errors. So some of the errors that we run into, I teach, I have taught basic 1 and 2 where we teach just the initial characters as well as some intermediate courses. And some of the things that I see with newcomers is first of all mixing up opposite characters. Characters like K and R, P and X, Y and L are exactly opposite each other if you look at the dits and das. When I have a student, I'm starting to mix up those characters, the student might be concerned, but I actually get excited and happy because I can see that their brain is starting to categorize things together. They're opposite, but that's why they're the same. So I'm glad when I start seeing that happen. And students normally work right through that. That's just in the beginning. Also, sometimes students will mix up characters that are very similar, an S and a H, just one little dit separating those, 6 and a B, a J and a 1. These are all very similar. And these, it just takes your ear getting used to the tone, getting used to the sound, and eventually they'll start to differentiate those characters that are similar. But one thing we found also is that, some of our members are older. I was in the Air Force for many years with jet engines running, and my hearing's not what it used to be. I found that if I turn the tone down on my rig and on my practice programs, I have an easier time distinguishing characters than if the tone was higher. So we found that you can also adjust the tone, and that makes a difference too. So these are some of the things that we've learned. Howard?
Yeah, I agree with the tone, Jim. Look, we've been talking about this in the classes lately. I like to listen to different tones. Some people are married, they'll only listen to something at 650 hertz, which is a pleasing tone. You really should vary the tone of the way you listen to CW, because you'll find that you'll be able to last longer and you won't get as tired listening to the same tone. It's just like if you listen to music, sometimes you'd like to listen to classical, sometimes you listen to jazz. I mean, if you listen to one type of thing all the time, you're not going to really be as engaged, As a matter of fact, and we have this in my head copy class, we play recordings of CW from back in the maritime days, and some of them sound like buzzes and chirps and everything else, and I like that. In fact, people that have been, banging on pipes sometimes in prison cells communicating to each other, you can really communicate in many different ways. So I would say it's good to vary the tone. Now, errors. There's one thing that we don't allow in our club. One thing we don't allow. We don't allow the word sorry. When people come, they start with us, they make a mistake, they say sorry on the key, sorry here, sorry. Nobody is allowed to say, there's nothing to be sorry about. So if you make a mistake, there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody makes mistake in life, okay? And you can make as many mistakes as you want when you're on the air, as long as the guy gets the gist. You only have to get the gist of this. You don't have to copy every single thing, and you don't have to be perfect. Okay, Jim, what do we got next?
Plateaus.
Okay, plateaus, yeah, plateaus. Okay, now this is a very common thing. People say to us, well, I got stuck at 11 words per minute. I got stuck at 18. I just can't get over it. Well, how do we deal with this? I cannot take credit for this particular class where, we get people, it's called our plateau class. Hal, WA2AKV, one of our instructors, came up with the term periodicity training. Now, what is that? When athletes train, let's say they get on a treadmill, they'll put it up very fast, they'll come down slow, then they'll come up in the middle. And, when you see a baseball player coming up to bat, he's swinging 2 bats, and then he drops one, and then he'll get around the ball quicker with just a lighter bat. So we do the same thing with periodicity. Let's say you're stuck at 15. Well, we push you up to 18. Now, you're not going to copy much up there, but we push you up there. Then we're going to bring you back to 10. Then we're going to bring you up to 15, and we're going to move you around, and we're going to break that barrier, and we find this works. So don't worry about plateaus. Everybody gets them, and you'll get by them.
Some of the things we see with people new to CW on the sending side are these items here. Inconsistency can be an issue, and we always work through this, but just in the beginning it can be trying to send consistent dits, consistent DAWs, especially with characters that have a long string of DAWs or a long string of dits. Spacing is very important. That's something that we work on a lot. You almost have to mentally, in fact, you do have to mentally send nothing in between characters and in between words. If you don't, you're sending just a long, what looks like a really long word, and it's really supposed to be a sentence, and it can help the operator on the other end by strategically placing your spaces and getting those in there right. So we work on that as well. We also find that sometimes, you can accentuate a da or a dash, you might say, but you can't never accentuate a dit, because then either one will be confused for the other. But I had a student the other day that couldn't send a number 4, was really having a hard time, which is 4 dits and a da. And so I said, hey, try accentuating that da at the end. And he did that and stuck that 4, no problem. So that's another technique we experiment with. And then overall, really, it's all about relaxing, having fun. Once we, if you've ever ridden a motorcycle or a car or anything really where you're tense, everything that happens on the road gets translated up through your arms, right to your body. In the same way, from your body out to your arms. And if you're nervous, you're not going to be able to send well on your key because you're going to be tense. And the same thing, you're not going to be able to receive very well and decode. So relaxing and getting comfortable with in our classroom environment, we focus on that, and that goes a long way in our learning process. Howard?
Yeah, Jim, that's all very good points. So, look, accentuating the dashes is very important. You have K. K is da da da. Now, there's no such thing as a dash that can be too long. So if you go da 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 and make that a little bit longer, people know that that's the end of your letter. It's a little bit better to hear over the air, and it's a little bit better signal to people that are just learning. So we find if we tell people to accentuate that last dash, it sounds a little bit choppy. Now, spacing. I could talk to you like this and say, okay, spacing is done like this, or I could talk to you like this and pause and pause. So your personality on the key should be the same way. Give people a chance to absorb what you're sending. So if you send your RST, you hold up for a second. 599. Think that there's somebody over there listening. Stop for a minute. Then when you get done, my QTH, take a deep breath, send it. So, send the way you would talk. If you talk very fast, you might lose your audience. And these are all the things that we teach you about timing and spacing. Okay, Jim.
All right, well, that's mine, right? Expectation management. I'd spent many years in the Air Force, and towards the end of my career, this became a big subject in the military, and it really translates perfectly on how we can help our students in our club. I've met with several students on the side to discuss. A lot of times they might think they're not getting along as far as they think they should be. They think they should be farther ahead, or they think they should be absorbing the characters a little bit quicker. But so far in every case, their expectations were farther ahead than what was really realistic, and they were actually right where they needed to be. It doesn't happen overnight. And so I just tell people to be patient. You got to hit it every day. Of course, you don't want to avoid burnout. You don't want to overdo it, but you have to realize that CW is another language. You don't learn Spanish overnight or in a month. It takes a little bit of a time. And so I always say, slow and steady will win the race. And it's all about focus. If we try to have fun, and you see at the end here, I put down that about having fun. If you're not having fun, you're not going to stick with it. And so, and really, I want to get the point across here that every CW, I've been doing CW for over 25 years now, and every CW contact I make is just as exciting as the very first CW contact I ever made. It's something about using CW, having to translate that code into a language, and just getting through that whole process. It's exciting, and it's an accomplishment, and everyone is very exciting. Howard?
Yeah, that's right, Jim. And coming back to the oral language, so consider CW just like you were learning Spanish, and you have to use it and you have to practice it. Now, we don't recommend you practice more than about 15 to 20 minutes a day, because we don't want you to get burned out by this, okay? So, I always tell this story, forgive me if there's some of our members in here that have heard this a few times, but look, we had 5 kids and they all took Spanish. They got A's in Spanish, right? But they never used it. Now they're in their 20s and 30s, and if someone said something in Spanish, or they had to, speak to a native or order something in a restaurant, they wouldn't be able to do it. So you got to use this language and accept it like it's a language. Now it's a little bit abstract because, you know, they're not talking to you. You have to decode it, but the process C is basically the same. Okay, Jim. Now, we hope this works. And I'll say why we're showing this video. This is what's going to happen to our students if they don't pay attention to our teachers, if they don't pay attention.
It might not be cooperating with us, Howard.
You're kidding.
Let me try it again here. No, it's not working.
I wonder if Gary can help us. Are you there, Gary?
Yeah, I am looking into it.
Hold on, folks. We had our fingers crossed on this, and we practiced for a long time to get these videos that we have to work. A little anticlimactical, but we'll get it.
I am also unable to get them to play.
Well,
Oh
that'll give
my
us some extra time for Q&A. Let me go back to the slide.
All right. I hope the rest of the well, look. Well, maybe we can come back that later.
Sure.
Okay. We have
can
some
try
other videos here.
We can try the other videos, and we'll just see
Yeah,
what
we'll
happens.
try the. Let's keep our fingers crossed here. Now, you know, at HRU, we were going to demonstrate a spark gap transmitter that the club was able to acquire last year from a local ham W2KRM. Let's see if this will play, Jim.
Okay.
Let's keep our fingers crossed for this.
Let's try this one here. Here it goes. Well, I guess we're not going to be showing that video. That's okay.
None of our videos are going to show?
Apparently not. But like I said, we can talk through it here a little bit.
Oh boy, because this worked in all our practice sessions.
We'll try this last. We'll try this one here. And if this one doesn't work, Howard, maybe we just we'll finish up the slides and then we can go to Q&A real quick.
Yeah, we'll have to have the longer Q&A. All right.
Yeah, I just tried re-uploading them to the webinar again, and it won't let me do it because the webinar is in progress.
Okay, no problem. We'll just go ahead and continue with the slides.
Let's see if you get the last one, Jim.
I'll get one last shot on this last one here. Okay.
All right,
well, at least we see the slides here, so we'll continue on.
One of them I can save here. Okay, so let me, you know, we really practiced pretty hard on this and tried very hard that this would work. So what were we going to show you? The Three Stooges is a great video. They send some CW and Mo winds up slapping Curly and Larry. It's very interesting. It's an actual CW being sent with a beautiful fist on a straight key that has personality. It's real CW being sent, not words but letters. We acquired a wonderful spark gap machine that was built by a local ham with original parts from the 1920s. That video can be found on our website, so there's no loss there. And the other machine that had a tape-driven CW drive on it is called an instructograph from the 1930s. And, you know, that plays CW, and it's very nice to watch it. That was given to us, and it didn't work. And some people on Long Island might know Ed, KD2ADC, and my buddy Joe, N2OUV, worked on this and restored it. That's the type of machine that was used by the SCC offices to give you your exam. And we always talk about that fellow Finkelman down there on Varick Street, and he had one of those things, so I wanted to show you. But one thing I can save, you know, we were talking before about CW can be sent, you know, with different types of tones, and I said banging on a pipe, and, you know, you can send CW, of course, by light, and the military is still doing it. So what is this here? This is a sounder from the late 1890s that we were able to acquire. We were going to show this and you can send CW here. So let's say I send a CQ. That's a CQ. Here's a C and a Q. So, you know, most people can understand that. Some people can't. But, you know, listen, that's the way Morse code was sent for, you know, 100 years or something like that. So this thing still works. And I'm using a World War II key on it. So we wanted to show that. Okay, Jim. So I think, do we have a slide, I think, on some of our key presentations, right?
Sure. I've got a couple key, a slide of keys showing now, and then we got a couple slides that talk about the club real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's showing the Bengali HST.
No, actually, you're still on that. We got to get back to your PowerPoint, Jim.
Oh, I thought I was on. I'm sorry about that. There we go.
Okay, so we got a little more time to talk about keys. So why don't you go ahead, Jim?
So on this particular slide, we're showing a couple, four different keys. Howard and I have a few of these. My favorite key right now is a Vibroplex bug that you see down there in the lower left-hand corner. And speaking of being in the left-hand corner, that's actually a left-handed bug. And I have to use left-handed bugs because I'm right-handed, but I learned to send backwards. I didn't have an Elmer when I first started sending with a paddle. So I send the dits and the DAWs with the opposite fingers that you might normally do. So this is my my Vibroplex bug. It's an original standard, 1969, and it's got a little Vera speed on top here to slow it down a little bit.
Okay, so what do I have here? I have a J38 World War II vintage military key. This is actually made by the Lionel company, the same company that made trains. You know, companies were pressed into service to do military work. These can be found on eBay for maybe $60 to $80. You can't kill these things. It's a very good starter key. Another key, which is at the end of the spectrum, this is the Cadillac of keys. This is the Bengali HST. This is a single lever paddle. This actually was given to me as a gift by my head copy class, which was very generous of them, and it really it really was an emotional thing for me to receive. This is the top of the line key, and it really tends to, since it's a single lever, it's less strain on my 68-year-old wrist here and fingers compared to something like this, which is also a Vibroplex paddle, but there's so much movement in this thing, you can even hear it, that it's just kind of when you're banging on it, and I tend to be a slapper, it tends to be a little bit hard on my wrist. So this Bengali HST is so easy to move. I really love it. So do we have anything left, Jim, before we take Q&A? Okay, so a little bit about the Long Island CW Club. These figures, we had this made last week. They're already outdated. We have 1,255 members. We have 48 teachers, and now we're up to 68 adult classes per week on Zoom. We also teach 9 kids classes. We've taught 221 kids CW since the COVID lockdown in March. We also have kids for YLs, and we're also this year going to be bringing CW to the handicap. We're starting our first class for the blind next week. We are also now in the process of arranging CW classes for the autistic, and we are also giving out prototypes now to give CW haptic vibrations to fingertips for people that are hard of hearing or deaf. So we plan to bring CW to people who are not as fortunate as we are. Okay, so on the left, you'll find classes that we have on a weekly and daily basis. These can all be found on our website, longislandcwclub.org. And, you know, we have many forums during the week. Monday night, Bug Cootie Straight Key Forum. Wednesdays, we have our CW Maker class where the teacher actually has a microscopic camera and will teach people how to build. We have an electronics class, basic electronics, every week. We embrace internet CW. We have a class for that. We're doing modulated CW over 2-meter repeaters. We have a class for that. Saturday, SOTA, POTA, QRP, Satellite Forum. Sunday, Antenna Forum. All of these are with presentations, mostly with outside speakers. And once or twice a month, we open up the entire club to hear speakers that bring in things from everything from talking about reverse beacon network lately, boat anchors, antennas, all types of topics. So, you know, like we said before, how do you have fun with CW? Get involved in a community that's having fun. If you're going to do it by yourself and study, yeah, can it be done? But it's a little bit lonely. And when someone in your family says, hey, you know, come down and watch Netflix, we got something great, I mean, the temptation's going to be pretty big. So if you're having fun, generally speaking, with all this going on, you'll have a better experience. What's next, Jim?
Next is where
so
we.
you want to thank. You want to take that, Jim? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just thank Ham Radio University for having us on, and to encourage everyone to make a donation to Ham Radio University if you feel so inclined, and this is how you do it.
Yeah. You know, Ham University, a wonderful bunch of people, hardworking people. It's a great thing to see, you know, in the flesh at the university here locally. But, you know, if you can make a donation, this was a very costly thing to put on, especially with the webinars. So please think about doing that. Okay, so thank you all very much for having us. Sorry about the videos. We're just as disappointed as you are, but those videos are all on the Long Island CW Club website. Okay, so it's not a one-of-a-kind thing. So I guess, Gary, having said that, we're ready for a few minutes of Q&A.
Sure thing, Howard. First question up here, is CW used on VHF, UHF at all?
Hardly, but it's our intention to bring it back. So like we said before, we are getting on Zoom all together. We're using modulated FM for CW. One of us hits at least one repeater, and the rest of us all over the country come in on Echolink, and we practice back and forth together. Good thing to use those underutilized repeaters that clubs are spending so much money to maintain. So we're trying to do our part here.
Okay, next question up here. Do you need an HF rig to do CW?
You would need an HF rig to get on the air, but you don't need that to take our classes. Anything that will make a sound, an oscillator will be fine. But yes, if you want to get on the air, you're going to need an HF rig. And you know, CW is mostly used between 80 and 10 meters. You'll find it on 6 meters when the band is open. 2 meter simplex, I think that would be a rarity.
Okay, next up here. Do the CW devices and software actually help with the learning curve, or does it hinder learning?
Oh, it definitely helps. You have to start out some way. Jim, why don't you take this?
No, whenever I mentioned about not overdoing it, not becoming a professional student, I guess I should have mentioned that. No, we appreciate and we do use these apps. We just don't want you to overuse them. But they're great. You can get them on your phone. You can be practicing whenever you're on the subway or on the bus or waiting somewhere. And that's nice to always have those things with you.
Okay, another participant asks, are you supposed to hold the last dah longer than the others?
Oh, we like that, as we talked about that in class. It makes for a better sending in the beginning. Now, once you get more proficient at sending, you can shorten it if you want. But, you know, I hang on those dashes when I'm using a straight key today. It gives you a little bit of a personality. It gives you a recognizable fist. We call that a fist. If you want to do it, it's fine. If you don't, you don't. No one is ever going to tell you, hey, why is that guy sending an extra long dash? Nobody's going to say that.
Okay. Is a CW practice oscillator worthwhile for a new operator to learn and improve with?
Go ahead, Jim.
Absolutely. We feel like that part of the learning process is sending. So it's very good to hear a character, visualize the character, and then send the character. So hearing it and then sending it helps in the learning process. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, oscillators can be gotten for $35. We recommend buying your first key, a 3D printed key from cwmorse.us. You can get the key and oscillator delivered to you for about $82. You can't beat it.
Okay, then we have a few general questions about your club. People would like to know the URL again. If
Yeah.
you have to live in New York City, Long Island section to join it, and if there are any dues for your club.
Okay, so here's the answer to that. The website, longislandcwclub.org, longislandcwclub.org. You do not have to be on Long Island. If we knew that the club would expand to, over 1,200 members in 3 years in 50 states and in 25 countries. I had a guy yesterday who's going to join from Lebanon. How did he find out about us in Lebanon? I don't know. It's amazing, Jim, Lebanon, right? It's a new country for us. So you don't have to be in Long Island. And we do this all on Zoom anyhow. So Zoom is the great equalizer. Maybe we would have called it something else, but Long Island CW Club is what it is. And you can be anywhere.
Okay.
What about the dues, Howard?
Oh, the dues. I'm sorry. We asked for a donation of $30 for the first year, $50 for the second, $70 for 3 years. Nobody takes that, and $90 lifetime. Once you pay your donation, there are no other costs to the club.
And Howard, also, I'd like to mention that once you're in the club, you can drop into any class at any time. There's no set hard schedule to where you have to begin at this time and end at this time. The classes are generally all running in a loop all the time, and you can drop in to any class anytime.
That's right.
Okay, last question, which is pretty good here. When you make a mistake, what should you do? You start the word over, start the letter over? How does the receiver know that you're trying to correct yourself?
When you make, we teach what we like to do is teach that when you make a mistake, instead of saying you're sorry, which we said we don't like to have people say you're sorry, because when you're on the air, you can't say you're sorry. So we treat it just like you're on the air. So if you make a mistake, either you keep on going. If it was a little mistake that someone will figure out and it's not important, you just keep going. If it's something you need to correct, you pause and then you just resend it, or you can send a string of dits to kind of erase it and start over. But for me, generally, just if you pause for a second and then restart that word, I think that's the best way to go.
And another thing we tell you, you make a mistake, just keep going. Okay. If you're sending, people know where things are in the QSO protocol. We call it a protocol for a reason. It has a flow. So they know in the beginning you're going to send RST. So let's say you say instead of RST, you go RTT or RDT. I wouldn't even correct it because people know what it is. I mean, don't worry about making mistakes. Everybody's going to get it.
Okay, last quick question here from KI4ZUQ. Says he's 80 years old. Does he stand a chance?
Let me tell you about this. We have a guy today that's joining at 89 years old. We got to listen to this. I hope we have time. We had a guy that found out about our club on Long Island, 98-year-old veteran of World War II, did CW at the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of the Bulge. He still knows his CW. We got it on video. It's unbelievable. So, learning is possible. We got plenty of people in their 80s and we got people in their 90s in the club, and they do it. And look, you're supposed to have fun. If you learn it, fun. If you don't, you don't. But, just try. Why not?
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. We are out of time for this session.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having us. I'm sorry about the videos. Disappointed, but that's the way things go sometimes. And it's our pleasure to be here and to support Ham Radio University. A great thing to do.